Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. The purpose of today's video is to make another step forward from the video that we made last time, and the subject of that would be to become familiar with your new installation of the NGFW on Tango that you have just recently deployed. When you are logging in, I'm going to make it so that it is just right when you guys have launched your firewall. When you are logging in, you are greeted by the Arista desktop, and this is all you see. For you to access any of the settings that you require to, you have to launch the built-in Chromium browser that will give you access to the configuration GUI of Arista. When you type in your password and you log in, you are going to see a menu divided into two different sections. In the left section, you're going to see dashboard, apps, config, and reports. We'll put a little asterisk on report because it's only available with an app that is installed onto your NGFW. And the second section that you see is on the right, which is sessions, hosts, devices, and users. We're just going to start off with the right section because it's much easier to summarize what you're going to be seeing and what you're going to be looking at. A quick summary, I suppose, to summarize the summarize tabs. that's funny. Sorry. A quick summary to summarize the summary tabs is basically saying that in each one of these tabs summarizes exactly what the keyword says they summarize. The first tab summarizes the sessions and the connections of everything that's connecting to your NGFW. So if we click on sessions, I already have a dummy client, which is just an OpenSUSE installation installed, and it's just doing random bips and bops. So the three IPs that you're going to be seeing is 192.168.5.58, which is the OpenSUSE installation, 192.168.2.147, which is the wide area network interface of the wireless of the NGFW, and the last that you're going to see is 192.168.5.1, which is the local interface, the local area network interface of the Arista firewall. And that's all I have. And this summary tab does a wonderful job of summarizing all the different connections, the protocols, whether it's bypassed, what hostname it's going to, because on the client tab over here, you have what hostname it's coming from. I know it's a little weird. When I was reading the documentation, this is how I understood it. I will link the documentation to the user guide on all the stuff, and feel free to interpret it in a different way, but so far this is how I've understood it. The next summary tab is the hosts summary tab, which is just basically all different clients that are located on your network. Oh wait, I forgot about the Fedora client. Sorry about that. So there is a fourth IP, 58 and 74. So I am working on figuring out how to work with FreeIPA, which is not really the scope of this video. It's just something that's coming into the future videos, so do keep an open mind that it is slowly coming. And as I mentioned, I do have the one dummy client, which is just OpenSUSE hanging around and doing whatever OpenSUSE does. Next tab is the tab which summarizes all the devices onto your local area network. And as you can observe, there's a bunch of tabs that say interface, last hostname, username. When I was following and reading through the documentation, the NGFW actually remembers if there was a hostname change on the network. Like for example, if my Fedora deployment was called Active Directory, but I decided to call it FreeIPA, initially it would be filled up with the host name under Active Directory, and once I rename it Active Directory would be showing up on their last host name, and the new host name would be updated to whatever the current host name would be. And the username, this is something that's really cool, I think, coming off of an NGFW, is that it will recognize the different and unique usernames that are active on the local area network. Like, for example, Mike, well, there is no username right now, but for example, Wazowski.m, if you have a domain user within your domain, and Wazowski.m is a source of a session, the Arista NGFW is actually going to recognize it as and it's going to summarize it. So if you have something that you're potentially looking in performing different network monitors for different users, this is actually a very powerful tool on how you can implement it. And then the last summary tab is users, which whenever you have an Active Directory domain or a free IPA domain, or sorry, Samba domain controller, this is where you can teach it by filling out the different Active Directory domain or user names which are browsing through your network, and this is how your NGFW installation is going to be recognizing and logging their activity. Again, this is, I'm going to reference the Arista documentation by saying that from my understanding, supposedly the NGFW learns as it goes. It's not 100% clear to me. Maybe I'm just misinterpreting it. Maybe it actually does it. I will let you guys judge. Again, I will put the link down in the description, and if it learns it automatically, great. If you have to manually feed it the different usernames that your network has, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's a small price to pay when it comes to like different metrics that you need your firewall to perform. Now on to the left side of the multiple tabs. The dashboard tab is pretty self-explanatory. It's just a system summary which gives you a bunch of different tabs: your map distribution, your network layout, the system information. As you can see, mine is just virtualized on one of my hosts. How many resources your NGFW is consuming. By the way, this is with all the apps installed, so I am actually fairly impressed by the compact size. You can literally just have it on an 8GB partition or an 8GB virtual disk, and if you don't have too many logs, then you can absolutely fit an extremely active, extremely compact little firewall, which is extremely powerful. The next tab that we're going to be looking at is the apps tab. Now, for this to work, and as you can see, I have all the apps installed, but for this to work, you have to connect your Arista to your Edge ETM dashboard, which is, if you've created a free account on the Edge Threat Management Unify account, whatever, all you need to do is just add your firewall's UID, unique user ID, I believe, and what it does is gonna add it to your cloud management, which is, you know, something that we're gonna go into a little later. But it basically, what it gives you access to their quote unquote app store, which gives you an expanded functionality with different functionalities like WAN failover, balancer, multiple different VPN options, configuration backup, intrusion prevention, captive portal. Well, this is, so if you don't see the free trial, 29 days remain, it's freely included with the from the App Store for the free tier. You have a web filter, web monitor, virus blocker, which is active virus blocker. I believe they build it, I have to do a little bit of research, but I believe they build it on top of the the clam antivirus that's available, and you just have a simplified application which auto updates and integrates really well with the operating system. Obviously, you have a firewall, some application control, an advanced ad blocker, which sadly I haven't seen a lot of development for. So there are a lot of, well, not a lot, but there's still a fairly significant amount of ads which will go through. There's still more work to be done. It's definitely not perfect, but it's more than what I was expecting it to work as. And we're gonna jump off the config tab because that's essentially the one that requires the most attention. And the reports tab is basically different types of reports that you can generate from your firewall, whether it's going to be activity, uptime, different packets, different quantity of traffic, different types of traffic, traffic by port, traffic by IP, bandwidth, web cache, phishing, if there have been any intrusions. A lot of reports are available across, as you can see, 31 categories from all the different apps that are available for installation. And now, the moment that you've been waiting for, the config tab. This is basically where you would probably be doing the majority of the work when it comes to configuring your NGFW. And it is divided into 8 different tabs, which have different functionalities. We're going to go from the back. The About basically has server information, licenses, if you have any licenses that are assigned to it, in the license agreement. Go back to config. Then we're gonna have system settings, synchronizing time, synchronizing language. This is the support plugin. If you are paying for this, you have access to remote support from the support team. If that's something that you are afraid of screwing up with this type of software, I more than invite you to go and pay. I think it's like hundreds some odd dollars a year. It is very practical to have. Then you have the logs settings, which just gives you a summary of how much space your logs are using and then how long you're going to be keeping them. My firewall instance has seen 0 to almost no activity for a couple of days, which is why you're only seeing 75 megs. Then you have the backup, you have the restore, which are self-explanatory. You have different protocols that are available in the remote. I would discourage you from disabling the process of HTTP traffic. The last time I did it, I got locked out of my NGFW and I had to reinstall it. It wasn't fun. I did have a bunch of settings that I had saved that I really wanted to reproduce, and I'm fairly sure that I haven't reproduced everything. FTP is if you want to browse into the file system of the firewall, which is again self-explanatory. And SMTP is for the enablement of alerts, notifications directly into an inbox. And Shield, the Shield tab, from my understanding, is the equivalent of ACL's access control list, if you guys are familiar with it. If you click on the add button right here, this is a pretty standard creation of if something has happened, what action should the firewall take? For example, without a condition, TCP and UDP traffic will be scanned. And once you click that, so virus scan TCP and UDP traffic. So once you create that, every type of traffic that your firewall encounters on said protocol with the conditions that you have set it, as I said, as I have given it, it will perform a virus scan on it. So in my case, a virus scan for all types of traffic that matches TCP and UDP. We're gonna delete it so that it doesn't generate extra activity on a virtual machine that we don't really want to have. And we're gonna go back to the config page. Upgrade is pretty self-explanatory. It's just the settings of when to perform the automatic upgrades any day of the week, midnight, once, or automatically do it. Local directory is another strong feature that the firewall has, and it's basically the creation of users who are going to be accessing the firewall, whether directly or via VPN, and the creation of a radius server, radius proxy, and viewing of the radius log. If you are using Arista NGFW as a gateway in a facility such as a hotel or a restaurant where captive portal is used, you can use captive portal with, in addition to radius server to create control traffic. Essentially what you can do is you can get really creative with it, just to add additional additional layers of protection for your network. Email is just the configuration of the email functionality for different notifications and different alerts that you can set your Arista NGFW to do. Going back into the config in the hold on, I missed one. I wanted to do events. This is just a summary of basically everything that your NGFW is trained to report on. For example, these are all the rules and the conditions that you see are basically what comes out of the box. As you can see, there's different activities based on a web filter, a session, a critical event, or essentially everything, and they are both logged and sent via an email notification. You have different triggers. You have settings for enabling a remote syslog server if that's something that you fancy, and then you can also create your self-catered email template. And these are just a couple of examples of the different tags that you can use when it comes to creating a dynamic template. Now we're going to go back to the configs. In the administrative section, this is where you can create users with administrative accounts, manage your different certificates, simple networking map protocol. If you have different skins for this, out of the box, there's a bunch of pretty cool ones. I want to see the Delrac AMD by Mike Trike. And the last tab that you have is Google, which if you connect it to your Google account, what you can do is you can basically save the configurations. I don't have it configured right now, but basically you can have a cloud backup of the different configuration settings that you would have set up. And we're going to go back to config one more time, and we are going to go into the network configuration, which is going to give us a plethora of access to the different functionality that actually pertains to networking, routing, port forwarding, rules, so on and so forth. Once you open the networking tab in the config banner, I guess, you are going to have another ribbon which is listed interface, hostname, services, port forward rules, network address translation rules, bypass rules, filter rules, routes, DNS server, DHCP server, advanced, and troubleshooting. So the interface tab is basically going to make a list of all the different interfaces that you have, whether they're active or inactive or in use or not in use by the firewall. Hostname is where you're just going to be setting up the hostname for your firewall and access the DNS service configuration. I don't think that this should be here. This is just a personal opinion. I think that this makes more sense to be under the DNS, or maybe have like an independent DNS tab and put DNS server and the dynamic DNS service configuration in there. But something that a lot of people have been begging from Arista to do is to add the Cloudflare support into their dynamic DNS configuration, and as of version 17, I can confirm that the Cloudflare configuration for DNS is available for everybody. Under different services, if you have a certificate to be active with the gateway hostname that you have used, or maybe even with the FQDN, it will be available on port 443, which can be user selectable. And then port 80, which is unencrypted traffic or HTTP traffic, it will be only available on the local area network interfaces or the internal interfaces. Port forwarding rules, this is pretty self-explanatory. You just create a rule and it will port forward whatever to the destination of the internal network that you are looking at. NAT rules is basically like firewall rules. For example, this is where you're going to be doing different VPN configuration access. For example, if you have a port open but you don't want it to be open, instead of closing it because you would need it, you would just set a rule to block traffic on whatever. It's just an additional layer of rules without port forwarding it. Bypassing rules, basically it says according to different actions and different conditions, you can create a list which will basically say whether or not the traffic will be bypassed from virus scanning. I don't know why you would need it, but it's available. Filter rules is basically blocking or allowing of different sessions, which I don't know. I have the impression that port forward rules, NAT, bypass, filter rules have a similar functionality to everything that they do, but there's also a difference. I don't want to lead you guys down a rabbit hole and say, okay, this is what it does, or this is what it doesn't do. This is where you're going to be setting static routes, and on the left is where you're going to be setting up static routes, and on the right, you're going to be seeing it as a summary. DNS server is basically the manual mapping of an FQDN. If you don't want to set up an FQDN for a web or a service, that leads to to the same IP. So service1.fqdn.com to address 1234, and then service2.fqdn.com to the same IP. And by using DNS static entries, you can differentiate the different services that you will be hosting on a single server. DNS servers would be essentially fqdn.dnsserver.com and then point it to whatever IP it is on your local network. DHCP server would be to set up static leases via DHCP for certain clients. The advanced tab just gives you a little bit more functionality, such as UPnP, QoS, DNS mask. I believe this is just a real-time visualization of DNS and DHCP activity, visualization of different network cards, and manual configuration and negotiation of the different network interfaces that you have. NetFlow, I'm not really sure what it does. I have to double check with the documentation on Arista Wikipedia page, and I will also link that again in the description. And the last part is, oops, sorry about that. And the last part is dynamic routing enabled, which gives you access to BGP and OSPF, and that pretty much summarizes the familiarization, I suppose, of Arista. I know I may potentially have zoomed through it a little bit. However, a lot of these things will start making sense into the next video whenever we start actually performing configurations, and you guys can see how everything ties together. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you into the next one.